Welcome to Valley Veterans, a program highlighting veterans from the Miami Valley and produced by the Miami Valley Veterans Museum, located at 2245 South County Road 25A in Troy, Ohio. If you'd like to call the museum, they can be reached at 937-332-8852. My name's Tristan Weiss, and I'm here again today with Staff Sergeant Michael DeHart. Michael, do you mind if I call you Mick?
No, that's great. Fine.
Perfect. All right, so we've covered with Mick in the past information about an ambush on April 10th, where he earned a Silver Star that was subsequently upgraded to his Distinguished Service Cross. We've talked about his entry into Vietnam, what his initial service was like. We've covered how he got his upgrade of his Distinguished Service Cross. Now we're going to dive into a few other details where he also got a Silver Star. I believe maybe a Purple Heart out of some of these. But we're going to go ahead and let you tell your story. Mick, let's start with the day of May 14th.
Okay. May 14th, the recon platoon, which I was in an Echo company, 2nd of the 5th, 1st Air Cav, and I was in a recon platoon. And we got a mission that day to go out. We were going to be inserted by helicopter to an area where there was suspected enemy movement, and so we were lifted out somewhere between 8 and 10 in the morning and inserted. On this particular day, the platoon did not have a second lieutenant as a platoon leader, which was normal. We just were without one at that time, waiting for a new one to come in. So I was put in charge of the platoon. Also on this day, my captain, Captain Pupil, went out with us, but he had told me that he was merely an observer, that I was to run the show. I was to find out later that he was actually evaluating me. On down the road, I was offered a commission to become an officer, but I turned it down. So anyhow, we went out, and with us that day we had Captain Pupil, of course. We had Gal, our Kit Carson, which is a Vietnamese scout. He was with us, and
So Mick, what time did you leave that day for this patrol? How'd you get there? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, we would normally get our operations orders the night before, and we would be told approximately how many soldiers we could put in each helicopter. And it would range anywhere from 4 to 6 per helicopter. So that would determine how many choppers we were to receive that morning. You know, it was beyond my expertise, something about the air density and so forth and so on. And so that morning we had 5 helicopters. And normally I would be riding in the last one, but since I was in the platoon leader slot, I was in the first chopper, so I would be first on the ground. But we were inserted and proceeded into an area to snoop around, and we were going along pretty good. And normally Gal would walk behind our point man. And we were in some pretty thick foliage, and all of a sudden Gal started yelling. Well, we'd been out with him enough, trusted him with body and soul. So when he started yelling, we didn't stop to say, "Oh, what's wrong?" No, we were immediately on our bellies and exchanging fire with the enemy, which once he started yelling, we were able to spot them, some of them. He was amazing. And
So this is your second ambush in, what, 3 weeks, a month?
yeah, about a month. I was trying to make a career of it, I think. I'm not sure, but...
Of ambushes? You're on the wrong side of that, right?
Right. So anyhow, you know, the fat was in the fire. Another saving grace, again, was the fact that we had surprised the enemy and they had not had time to prepare a proper ambush because they were scurrying around, you know, trying to get in position. So we were exchanging fire. I was down on my belly firing, and next to me was a young soldier, Thomas Baker.
Where were you located? Were you on the front line of this ambush?
Yes, we're kind of stretched out on a straight line, and that's pretty much how the enemy ended up being set up. Like I said, it was, you know, we surprised them, they surprised us, so nobody had time to, you know, build a fort. And
so you were leading this platoon today. You're on your belly, in the prone position, exchanging fire. What's going through your mind?
I wish I was home, but no, we knew, I knew that we needed to get away from this because, you know, everybody's, even though they were flat on the ground, they're still above the ground. They're still visible, and we needed to break contact and regroup. So Baker and I were doing a basic fire and move. I would fire, he would move. He would fire, I would move. So we're doing that, you know, and moving back, crawling on our bellies backwards. And at one point in time, I told Baker, I said, I'm going to throw a grenade when when it goes off. Let's, you know, make a good scoot. So I threw the grenade. It blew. Baker moved, and then I moved, and then I waited for him to move. All this time I was firing, and he didn't move. And I checked him. He was gone. And so I just kept on moving out of the kill zone, if you will, to where we could get back and regroup. I actually ended up behind a bush with Captain Pupil and another soldier, Jim Jennings from Utah, and the three of us are hiding behind this bush, which I don't know what kind of protection that would have been. And then we had a deep discussion about who should cover who, okay, and which seemed kind of silly at the time. But anyhow, we did finally move on back to an area where we could regroup as a platoon. And at that point in time, we received word that D Company, Delta Company, was coming in to reinforce us. That happened every once in a while when Echo was out on a patrol. They would take a line company, which is generally about 100 soldiers, and put them in what they call LZ posture. In other words, get them ready to get picked up by helicopters. And they would pick them up, bring them to us, and reinforce us. So we were to sit tight. You know, D Company was going to come and reinforce us. We were then going to sweep through the area and try and get rid of the bad guys. While we were waiting, Captain Pupil suggested I get 3 volunteers and go back down the trail to see what was going on, which really didn't make my day, but I had learned in this man's army, when you're given an order, you just go ahead and do it. So I got 3 volunteers, you, and you, and you know, we started back down the trail, and we knew that we were probably going to run into something. And we probably hadn't gone 15 feet, and Captain Pupil called us back because D Company was on the ground, and were coming through to hook up with us. And at that point in time, D Company and our platoon, we basically got on a line and swept through that area and pushed the enemy on out of that area. We suffered another casualty that day. Stephen Tucker Perry was a young soldier from Connecticut that had only been with us a couple weeks, and that hurt. The thing with Baker, I'm not sure how to get into it. Later on, I had thoughts that the grenade I threw might have caused his death. And I carried that for a long time. And I would have that memory, and it really bothered me. And then somewhere around 2006, that's a long time from May 14th, 1969.
Definitely.
My first sergeant, who I hadn't spoken to since Vietnam, called me on the phone out of the blue. That in itself was a shock. And we talked for a couple hours. And in that conversation, he set me straight in the best first sergeant tone you can imagine. And what he said was, I did not have anything to do with Baker's death, that Baker was actually raked across the chest by an AK-47. And then, of course, on down the road and discussing that with my VA counselor, you know, we kind of got some peace there.
So you carried that with you for 30 years.
But like a lot of my Vietnam, as was explained in an earlier segment, for 32 years it didn't exist. Okay, and I did a good job, believe me. And during this firefight, one of our other guys, Abernathy, had gotten shot by a sniper who was in turn dispatched by Sergeant Goss. He had to be medevaced out, and they brought in the medevac, and they had to use the jungle penetrator to come down to lift him out of the jungle. Also, our Kit Carson gal had been shot in the heel. And so he was medevaced out also. And we would come back in later for our deceased. That was the last day the gal would be with us in the field. I could do a whole segment on this young man. He was a barber in civilian life in South Vietnam. He had been captured by the North Vietnamese and told to be a Viet Cong for them, with threat that something would happen to his family, but he later surrendered to the American forces. They rehabilitated him, if you will, made him into a scout, and he was worth his weight in gold. plus the fact he gave the best haircuts of anybody in the Army. Our platoon always looked good, really. Later on, we found out many years later at one of the reunions that Gal had had a reception back then and been awarded the American Silver Star. And that was extraordinary.
And you know, thinking of Silver Stars, you received an award from this action on May 14th, right? Which award was it?
I received my second Silver Star at that time.
Second Silver Star.
Yes, so I was very fortunate.
All right. So I want to switch gears here. Right around June 20th, maybe, you were in camp and had another action happen. I think you might have got a Purple Heart out of this one.
Right.
Can you walk us through what took place there?
Another day that will live in infamy.
A lot of those days with you, Mick.
No, the LGI got hit that night by a pretty large enemy force. And when they started firing rockets into the LZ, which I explained to everyone what an LZ is, great big circle with a lot of barbed wire around it. I went from where I had gone down for the night and was running towards the perimeter because that's where my platoon was at the time, some of them keeping guard. And as I was running, all of a sudden I was just blown from my feet and I flew up against a bunker, which, you know, and slid down that and shook myself. And it's one of those things where you fall down but you don't feel hurt, so you think, wow, you know, what was that? So I got up and just kept on running to the perimeter and went down in another bunker. And as I got down there, my left knee started hurting like I had a cramp in it. Okay, and I was pushing it up against the side of the bunker to relieve it like you would do if you had a muscle cramp or something. And I felt my back was wet, and I reached back there and I brought my hand out and I was bleeding, you know, so couldn't have been too bad because it didn't hurt, but it was bleeding. So moving on, the line company that was on the LZ with our platoon did a great job, and we were able to beat the enemy down. Following morning, I was medevaced out to an aid station. Had shrapnel in my back, and they removed that at the aid station.
Did you keep a piece of it?
No, I just didn't. Well, I take it back. I did keep two. The blast had sent shrapnel into my left knee, and the doctor that was cutting on it told me that he was going to leave those two in there because if he went in after him, he would mess up my knee. And he said, we leave a lot of them in there, don't worry about it. So
Still there?
Still there.
Still there.
Yeah.
Any problems with metal detectors with that one?
No, they're not that big. They don't.
So you guys were caught off guard basically that night. Got extremely lucky that you ran into a blast, blew you back. Probably a second or two. If you were just a little bit taller, a little bit faster, you know, you might have really had a really bad night that night.
Well, the real bad downside to that is when that rocket hit that threw me, I was thrown by the blast. It actually landed on a little bunker. Some of the guys would take these corrugated pieces of sheet metal that you might see in a culvert or something, and they would cover it with sandbags to make a place for them to sleep at night. And that landed on my medic's hooch. That's what we called it. and it killed him. Joe Goetzer was a medic, a very brave medic. In fact, I don't think I ever met any medic that wasn't brave. And also that same blast got another young man, Larson, who had, Lauren Larson, who had only been with us again a couple weeks. So, yes, I was
here
lucky,
you've lost
fortunate.
2 men, you're wounded, and you still go up to the perimeter to lead your men.
And then
how long did this action take place? How long were you?
Generally, the enemy wouldn't spring them until, maybe like 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, okay, because it took them a long time to get to where they were going. And it went on almost till daybreak, and then they knew at daybreak they had to leave. We had approximately 90 KIA enemy outside the wire. And
so you guys fought like hell.
And yeah, so here again, one of the fellows that's in my platoon was on guard. One of those very conscientious soldiers that you owe your life to, and he spotted the enemy before they were ready to do their thing, and that started the ball rolling and gave us the advantage, if you will. So, anyhow, there was a...
So you spent 4 hours on the perimeter,
right,
fighting off an attack.
Yeah.
Did you receive any medical treatment during this time, or were you just
No.
bleeding on your back and
No.
shrapnel in your knee? And
Like I still thought I had a cramp in my leg, I thought, and didn't know until I got to the aid station.
so you received a Purple Heart out of this action.
Right.
Any other awards out of this action?
No.
All right. So landing zone Ike, that's where Echo Platoon was stationed. Your entire unit was stationed there, correct? Mm-hmm. Can you describe what the landing zone was like? A little more descriptive of, how big was it? Did you guys clear trees to get in there?
People ask me that, and I should have, I have a few pictures, but you're talking maybe a circle that could be 100 to 150 yards in diameter. So you're talking a good sized circle.
Football field?
There's a place to land helicopters, okay? And also on that LZ we had 4 105 howitzer cannons, okay? And also part of Echo Company, we had the recon platoon and we had a mortar platoon. And right beside where recon was responsible for 25% of that circle as far as guarding. And the mortar platoon was right behind it. Here again, just another extraordinary type of heroism. When the LZ was being attacked, the mortar platoon is standing. They were in pits, maybe 3-4 feet deep, if you will. But they're out in the open, and they're using their mortars to fire at the enemy. And they're out there in the open, and like it's Sunday, and just doing their job. It was extraordinary to watch. I could probably never convey to people the extraordinary things that young men did. I have a thing here that I'm not so sure. I might have been responsible for a couple lines of it, but the rest of it probably goes to my wife, Carol. And it reflects back on April 10th, and the same would apply to May 14th. It's written a little bit ago. Today, April 10th, 1969, 51 years ago this day, that will literally live in infamy for the men of Echo Company, 2nd of the 5th Cav, 1st Cav Air Mobile, in a particularly vicious firefight in Phu Vinh Province, Vietnam. Forgive me. These common men showed extraordinary valor. In the ensuing years, a Medal of Honor was awarded, a DSC, multiple Silver Stars, and multiple Bronze Stars, multiple ARCOMs. Nearly the whole platoon received Purple Hearts. This firefight was underway at this time of day, men fighting and pinned down in a bomb crater until nearly dusk, when it was finally safe for the helicopters to make pickups. Men of Echo Company, 2nd of the 5th Cav. Hats off to all of you. We were common soldiers who stepped up that day and did extraordinary things. Never a year goes by that I don't remember those we lost and those with permanent scars from that day. God bless you all. Mick and Carol DeHart. Just a little tribute to the...
Powerful words, Mick. Powerful words. I really appreciate your time. I really hope everyone's enjoyed this series of programs. Remember, this is Valley Veterans, a program highlighting veterans from the Miami Valley and produced by the Miami Valley Veterans Museum, located at 2245 South County Road 25A in Troy, Ohio. You can reach us at 937-332-8852. Again, my name's Tristan Weiss, and I was here with Michael Mick DeHart. Thank you for tuning in.